Part 5. What Makes Us Human. Marcus crept closer to the main gate of the Griktar settlement. The drums from the temple were getting louder and more urgent. Through the wooden walls, he could see the orange glow of a massive fire inside the temple complex. His motion detector showed guards at the gate, but they looked bored and lazy. They were not expecting an attack on their main stronghold. Marcus placed his 2 improvised bombs near the gate supports. He set them to explode in 60 seconds. That would give him enough time to get into position. As he worked, he could hear the chanting from the temple more clearly. Even though he didn't understand the Griktar language, the rhythm sounded like a countdown. They were building up to something important. Marcus finished setting the bombs and ran toward the side of the settlement. His plan was simple but dangerous. The explosions would draw all the guards to the main gate. While they were distracted, his team would sneak in from different directions. The first bomb exploded with a tremendous boom that shook the entire settlement. The wooden gate burst into flames. Griktar warriors came running from every direction, shouting and carrying weapons. Marcus waited 10 seconds, then triggered the second bomb. This one was even louder than the first. The burning gate collapsed completely, and black smoke filled the air. "Now!" Marcus whispered, knowing his team would see the signal. He fired a flare high into the air above the settlement. The bright red light lit up everything like daylight. Griktar warriors ran around in confusion, trying to figure out where the attack was coming from. Marcus ran along the outside wall until he found a section damaged by the explosion. He squeezed through a gap and found himself inside the settlement. The place was chaos. Warriors were running toward the burning gate. Others were searching for enemies in the shadows. No one was looking for a single human moving carefully through the darkness. Marcus made his way toward the temple in the center of the settlement. As he got closer, he could see it was much bigger than he had thought. Stone steps led up to a massive wooden building with carved pillars. Torches burned all around it, and the sound of drums echoed from inside. At the entrance to the temple, Marcus saw something that made his blood freeze. Hanging from wooden poles were the bones of many different creatures. Some looked like Kethmari skeletons. Others were from animals he didn't recognize, and some looked almost human. This was not just a temple. It was a place where the Griktar brought their victims for ritual sacrifice. Marcus climbed the stone steps carefully. 2 guards stood at the temple entrance, but they were looking toward the burning gate, not watching for threats from inside the settlement. Using his emergency light like a club, Marcus knocked out both guards quickly and quietly. He dragged their unconscious bodies into the shadows and took one of their stone knives. Inside the temple, the drumming was so loud it hurt Marcus's ears. He could see a large chamber ahead, filled with Griktar warriors all facing toward the center. They were chanting and raising their weapons in the air. Marcus crept along the wall, staying in the shadows between the torches. When he got close, enough to see the center of the chamber, his heart almost stopped. Zira was tied to a wooden post above a huge fire pit, but she was not alone. Around the fire pit were at least 20 other Kethmari, men, women, and children. They were all bound and waiting to be sacrificed. At the edge of the fire pit stood the largest Griktar Marcus had ever seen. This one was twice the size of the others, with black scales instead of green. His claws were as long as knives, and his teeth were filed to sharp points. Bone jewelry covered his entire body, and his eyes glowed red in the firelight. This had to be the High Chieftain. The High Chieftain raised his arms, and all the chanting stopped. He spoke in the Griktar language, his voice deep and commanding. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but he could guess their meaning. This was the moment when the sacrifice would begin. The High Chieftain picked up a burning torch and moved toward Zira. She looked weak and injured, but her purple eyes were still defiant. She would not beg or show fear, even in the face of death. Marcus had to act now. But there were over 100 Griktar warriors in the chamber. His remaining flare gun and emergency light would not be enough to fight them all. Then Marcus remembered something Zira had told him days ago. The Kethmari were telepathic. They could share thoughts with each other. Marcus took out his emergency light and turned it to its brightest setting. Then he stepped out of the shadows into the center of the chamber. Every Griktar warrior turned to stare at him. The High Chieftain snarled and pointed at Marcus with his torch. "Hey!" Marcus shouted as loud as he could. "Looking for me?" The High Chieftain spoke in broken English, his voice like grinding stones. "Sky Demon, you come to die with the food creatures." "I came to teach you something," Marcus replied. He raised his emergency light above his head. "This is what happens when you mess with humanity." Marcus triggered the light's emergency strobe function. Brilliant white light flashed on and off rapidly, filling the entire chamber. The Griktar screamed and covered their eyes. Some of them fell to their knees, blinded and confused. In the chaos, Marcus fired his flare gun at the ropes holding the Kethmari prisoners. The burning flare cut through several ropes at once, freeing some of them. "Zira!" Marcus yelled. "Can you hear my thoughts?" Through all the noise and confusion, he felt Zira's telepathic voice in his mind. "Marcus, how are you here?" "Never mind. That. Can you reach the other Kethmari with your telepathy?" "Yes, but I am very weak." "Tell them to use their camouflage and run for the exits. Tell them my team is outside waiting to help them escape." Marcus could feel Zira sending urgent messages to the other Kethmari prisoners. Suddenly, they began disappearing. Their skin changed color to match the stone walls and floor. In seconds, they were invisible. The High Chieftain roared in anger. He grabbed a spear from one of his warriors and threw it at Marcus. Marcus rolled to the side, and the spear crashed into the wall behind him. More Griktar warriors were recovering from the bright light. They began surrounding Marcus, their weapons ready. Marcus fired his last two flares at the wooden ceiling of the temple. The flares stuck in the dried wood and began setting it on fire. Smoke started filling the chamber. "You want to know what makes humans special?" Marcus shouted at the High Chieftain. "It's not our weapons or our technology. It's that we never give up on our friends." The High Chieftain charged at Marcus with his claws extended. Marcus dodged to the side and swung his emergency light like a club. It hit the High Chieftain in the head, but only made him angrier. Massive Griktar grabbed Marcus by the throat and lifted him off the ground. His red eyes glared into Marcus's face. "Stupid Sky Demon," the High Chieftain growled. "You die now. Then I eat your brain and learn your magic." Marcus could barely breathe, but he managed to smile. "Too late," he whispered. Suddenly, the temple shook with multiple explosions. Marcus's team had used their stolen Griktar weapons to attack the settlement from all directions. Through the smoke and flames, Marcus could see Kethmari warriors fighting alongside his original volunteers. But these were not the same frightened refugees who had hidden in the caves. These Kethmari moved with purpose and skill. They used their camouflage to appear and disappear like ghosts. They fought with the tactics Marcus had taught them, but also with something new: hope. The High Chieftain threw Marcus to the ground and reached for his massive war club. But before he could use it, Zira appeared behind him. She had freed herself from the ropes and picked up one of the fallen spears. "This is for my people," Zira said in her musical language. She drove the spear into the High Chieftain's back. He roared in pain and spun around, but Zira had already disappeared back into camouflage. The High Chieftain staggered and fell to his knees. Dark blood poured from his wound. He looked at Marcus with hatred and confusion. "Impossible!" he gasped. "Food creatures do not fight back." "They do now," Marcus said, getting back to his feet. "That's what I taught them. That's what it means to be free." The High Chieftain collapsed and did not move again. Around the burning temple, the battle was turning. The Griktar warriors were fleeing into the jungle, confused and leaderless. The Kethmari had won their first real victory in generations. Marcus found Zira among the rescued prisoners. She was weak and injured, but alive. When she saw him, her purple eyes filled with tears of relief. "You came back for us," she said through her telepathy. "Even when it was hopeless." "I told you," Marcus replied, helping her walk toward the temple exit. "Humans don't abandon their friends." Outside, the settlement was burning, but Marcus's motion detector showed something wonderful. Hundreds of small dots were moving through the jungle, Kethmari from other hidden groups, coming to join the fight. Word of their victory was spreading. Elder Corvash approached Marcus as they gathered the survivors. The old Kethmari looked at Marcus with deep respect. "You have given us something we had forgotten," he said through a translator. "You have given us courage." "No," Marcus corrected. "I just reminded you that you already had it." 3 days later, a human rescue ship landed in the jungle, drawn by Marcus's emergency beacon. The captain was surprised to find Marcus surrounded by dozens of blue-skinned aliens who seemed to worship him. Part 4. The Gambit. The night was dark and quiet as Marcus and his 12 Kethmari volunteers crept through the jungle toward the Griktar camp. Their faces were painted with mud, and their skin had changed color to match the shadows between the trees. Marcus checked his motion detector. The Griktar camp was just ahead. Red dots on the screen showed about 30 warriors, most of them sleeping around several campfires. "Remember the plan," Marcus whispered to his team. "We go in, take their weapons and food, and get out fast. No unnecessary fighting." Zira nodded and sent the message telepathically to the others. They had been practicing silent communication all day. Through the trees, Marcus could see the Griktar camp. It was bigger than he had expected. Large tents made from animal skins surrounded multiple fire pits. Racks of spears and clubs were stacked near the center. Piles of dried meat hung from wooden frames. "Too easy," Marcus muttered to himself. Something felt wrong, but they had come too far to turn back now. The Kethmari needed those supplies, and they needed to prove to themselves that they could strike back at their enemies. Marcus gave the hand signal to begin. The Kethmari spread out around the camp like invisible ghosts. Their camouflage was perfect in the darkness. Tarek and Lyra moved toward the weapon racks. John and Kess crept toward the food supplies. The others positioned themselves to watch for guards. Everything went smoothly at first. The Griktar were sleeping deeply after their defeat at the cave. The Kethmari quickly gathered armfuls of spears, knives, and dried meat. Then Nira's telepathic voice screamed in all their minds, "Trap! It's a trap!" Bright torches suddenly flared to life all around the camp. Dozens of Griktar warriors rose from hidden positions where they had been waiting. They had been lying under dirt and leaves, completely concealed. "Run!" Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The Griktar had them surrounded. Nets flew through the air, trying to catch the fleeing Kethmari. War cries echoed through the jungle. Marcus fired his last flare into the air, creating a brilliant light that confused some of the Griktar. In the chaos, most of his team managed to escape, but not all of them. Zira had been helping Pole carry a heavy bag of weapons when the trap was sprung. She was too far from the jungle edge when the nets came down. A Griktar warrior grabbed her with his massive claws. She fought and kicked, but he was too strong. Marcus saw her purple eyes looking at him desperately as the warrior carried her away. "Zira!" Marcus yelled. He started to run toward her, but Tarek tackled him to the ground. "You cannot save her," Tarek said urgently. "There are too many of them." Marcus struggled against Tarek's grip. "I'm not leaving her behind." "If you try to save her now, you will die too," Tarek said. "Then who will help the rest of us?" More Griktar were coming through the jungle, chasing the escaped Kethmari. Marcus watched helplessly as they carried Zira away into the darkness. The remaining team members regrouped at a safe distance. They had managed to steal some weapons and food, but the cost was terrible. "We have to go back for her," Marcus said, as they caught their breath. "It is too dangerous," Lyra said sadly. "The Griktar will be expecting us now." "I don't care," Marcus replied firmly. "Humans don't abandon their friends." "But Zira is not human," John pointed out. Marcus stared at him angrily. "That doesn't matter. She's part of our team. She's our translator. Without her, we can't coordinate properly." "There is another reason you want to save her," Kess said quietly. "You care about her." Marcus was quiet for a moment. It was true. In the short time he had known Zira, he had grown to respect her courage and intelligence. She had become more than just an alien he had rescued. She had become his friend. "Yes, I care about her," Marcus admitted. "But even if I didn't, I would still go back. That's what makes us different from the Griktar. We protect each other." They made their way back to the cave, carrying their stolen supplies. Elder Korvash was waiting for them with the other Kethmari survivors. When he learned that Zira had been captured, the old Kethmari shook his head sadly. "She is gone," he said through another translator. "The Griktar do not keep prisoners for long. We must mourn her and move on." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We're going to get her back." "How?" Elder Korvash asked. "We are 20 people. They are hundreds." Marcus was already making plans in his mind. "We use everything I've taught you. Hit-and-run attacks, distractions. Make them think we're attacking from multiple directions." "That will not work," Elder Korvash argued. "They know our tricks now. They will be ready." Before Marcus could reply, a young Kethmari came running into the cave. He was breathing hard and looked terrified. "Scouts!" he gasped. "I saw Griktar scouts near the stream. They are looking for our cave." Marcus checked his motion detector. The screen showed several red dots moving slowly through the jungle, getting closer to their position. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "Maybe 1 hour," the scout replied. Marcus made a quick decision. "Pack everything. We're leaving." "Where will we go?" Elder Korvash asked. "Deeper into the jungle. But first, we're going to rescue Zira." "That is madness," the elder protested. "Maybe," Marcus said, "but sometimes madness is the only thing that works." As the Kethmari packed their few belongings, Marcus studied his map of the area. He had been marking Griktar positions and patrol routes for days. He was starting to understand how they operated. The Griktar were strong and fierce, but they were not very creative. They followed the same patterns over and over. They liked direct attacks and overwhelming force. That gave Marcus an idea. "Listen carefully," he told his volunteers. "I know where they're holding Zira. There's a large Griktar settlement about 5 miles north of here. It's where their main chief lives." "The High Chieftain," Tarek said with fear in his voice. "No, Kethmari has ever seen him and lived." "Then it's time to change that," Marcus replied. "Here's what we're going to do." Marcus outlined his plan. It was dangerous and complicated, but it might work. The key was to make the Griktar think they were under attack from a large force, when actually it would just be Marcus and a small team. "While I create a distraction at the main gate, 3 of you will sneak in from the back and find Zira. The rest will spread out around the settlement and make noise at different points. We want them confused and scared." "What if we cannot find her?" Lyra asked. "Then we improvise," Marcus said. "But we don't leave without her." They spent the next hour preparing. Marcus made more improvised explosives using the last of his power cells. The Kethmari volunteers practiced their camouflage and silent movement techniques. As they got ready to leave, Elder Korvash approached Marcus one last time. "I still think this plan will fail," he said through the translator. "But I see now that you truly care about our people. If you die trying to save Zira, you will be remembered as a hero." "I don't plan to die," Marcus replied. "I plan to win." The team set out through the dark jungle toward the Griktar settlement. As they moved, Marcus's motion detector showed more and more red dots ahead. The settlement was huge, much larger than the camps they had attacked before. When they reached the edge of the settlement, Marcus could hardly believe what he saw. There were hundreds of Griktar warriors. Massive bonfires lit up dozens of tents and crude buildings. And in the center of it all was an enormous wooden structure that looked like a temple. "There," Tarek whispered, pointing at the temple. "That is where the High Chieftain lives. If Zira is still alive, she will be in there." Marcus nodded. His plan suddenly seemed much more dangerous than before, but he had come too far to turn back now. "Remember," he told his team, "wait for my signal. When you see the explosions at the main gate, that's when you move." The Kethmari volunteers melted into the shadows around the settlement. Their camouflage made them invisible against the darkness. Marcus took a deep breath and checked his remaining equipment. 2 improvised bombs, 1 flare gun with 3 shots left, and his emergency light. Not much to fight an army with. But he had something the Griktar didn't expect: human stubbornness and the refusal to abandon a friend. Marcus began moving toward the main gate of the settlement. As he got closer, he could hear sounds coming from the central temple. Drums were beating, and voices were chanting in the rough Griktar language. It sounded like they were preparing for some kind of ceremony, and Marcus had a terrible feeling he knew what that ceremony was for. Part 3. The Human Touch. The heavy breathing outside the cave entrance grew louder. Marcus could hear the Griktar sniffing the air and making low growling sounds. They had found the hiding place. Elder Corvash whispered something to the other Kethmari. They all pressed themselves against the back wall of the cave, trying to become invisible. Some of the children started to cry softly. Marcus looked at his motion detector. The screen showed dozens of red dots surrounding the cave. The Griktar had them completely trapped. "How many other exits are there?" Marcus whispered to Zira. 2 small tunnels at the back," she replied through her telepathy. "But they lead to dead ends. This cave is a trap." "Perfect," Marcus said with a smile. Zira looked at him like he was crazy. "Perfect? We are about to die. And you think it is? Perfect? The best traps work both ways," Marcus explained quietly. He opened his survival pack and started taking out items. "The Griktar think they have us cornered, but corners are good places to make a stand." Outside, they heard a rough voice, speaking in the Griktar language. It sounded like orders being given. "What are they saying?" Marcus asked. Zira listened carefully. "The leader is telling them to be careful. He says there is a new type of creature, with strange magic that makes bright light and loud noise. He wants some warriors to go around to the back tunnels in case we try to escape." "Good. That splits their forces." Marcus was connecting wires to small devices from his pack. "Tell your people to move to the middle of the cave, and tell them to cover their ears when I say so." Elder Corvash spoke angrily to Zira again. "He says you will get us all killed with your strange ideas," Zira translated. "I might," Marcus admitted, "but doing nothing will definitely get you all killed. At least my way, you have a chance." Marcus finished connecting his devices. He had made 3 small bombs using power cells from his equipment. They were not very powerful, but in a closed space like the cave entrance, they would be loud and bright. "Listen carefully," Marcus said to all the Kethmari. "In about 2 minutes, I'm going to make a lot of noise and light. The Griktar will be confused and scared. That's when we fight back." "But we do not know how to fight," said a young Kethmari male. "Then I'll teach you," Marcus replied. "First lesson, use what makes you special. You can change your skin color, right? And you're faster than they are?" The young male nodded. "Then you're already better warriors than you think. You just never had anyone show you how." Marcus looked at all the frightened faces around him. "I need volunteers, people who are willing to take risks to save their families." Slowly, 6 Kethmari stepped forward. They were all young adults, 4 males and 2 females. They looked scared but determined. "What are your names?" Marcus asked. "I am Tarek," said the male who had spoken before. "These are Lyra, John, Kes, Nira, and Pol." "Good. You are now soldiers." Marcus started handing them sharp pieces of metal and rock from his pack. "Your job is to be invisible and fast. When the Griktar are confused by my explosions, you attack the ones at the back. Cut their legs so they cannot chase you. Then disappear and attack from a different direction." "But we have never hurt anyone," Lyra said, her voice shaking. Griktar have been hurting your people for generations," Marcus replied firmly. "They were going to cook Zira alive. They will do the same to your children if you don't stop them. Sometimes violence is the only language bullies understand." Outside, the Griktar were getting impatient. They were making more noise, and Marcus could see shadows moving past the cave entrance. "Zira, I need you to be my translator during the fight," Marcus said. "Can you send thoughts to multiple people at once?" "Yes, but it is very tiring. Do it anyway. When the fighting starts, I'll need you to coordinate the others. Tell them where to attack and when to retreat." Marcus placed his improvised bombs near the cave entrance. He kept one flare gun for himself and gave his backup emergency light to Tarek. "Remember," Marcus told his small group of volunteers, "we're not trying to kill all of them. There are too many. We just want to hurt them. Enough that they retreat and think twice before attacking again." Elder Korvash spoke urgently to Zira. "He says this plan is madness," Zira translated. "He says we should surrender and hope the Griktar kill us quickly." Marcus looked at the old Kethmari with sad eyes. "Tell him that hope without action is just waiting to die. Tell him that sometimes you have to fight for your people, even if you might lose." A loud roar came from outside the cave. The Griktar were getting ready to attack. "Everyone get ready," Marcus said. "Cover your ears and close your eyes when I count to 3. The Kethmari volunteers spread out around the cave. Their skin began to change color, matching the rock walls until they were almost invisible. A Griktar head appeared at the cave entrance. It had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. It looked around carefully, then made a hand signal to others behind it. 1. Marcus counted quietly. More Griktar appeared at the entrance. They were carrying spears and stone axes. Their green scales gleamed in the blue light of the cave fungi. 2, Marcus said. The Griktar leader stepped into the cave. He was huge, even bigger than the others. Bone jewelry covered his chest, and his claws were painted with red marks. He looked directly at Marcus and snarled. 3! Marcus shouted. He triggered all 3 bombs at once. The explosion was tremendous in the closed space. Bright white light filled the cave like lightning. The sound was so loud that pieces of rock fell from the ceiling. The Griktar at the entrance screamed and fell backward, covering their eyes and ears. Marcus fired his flare gun at the group of confused warriors. The burning flare hit one of them in the chest, and he ran away howling. The others stumbled around, blindly, unable to see or hear properly. "Now!" Zira's telepathic voice reached all the Kethmari volunteers at once. Tarek and the others moved like ghosts. Their camouflaged skin made them invisible against the cave walls. They attacked the Griktar from behind, cutting at their legs with the metal shards Marcus had given them. The Griktar tried to fight back, but they could not see their attackers. They swung their weapons at empty air while the fast-moving Kethmari struck and vanished again. Marcus ran to the cave entrance with his emergency light. He turned it to its brightest setting and shined it directly at any Griktar who tried to enter. The intense light made them scream and retreat. "Lyra, behind you!" Zira's mental voice warned. Lyra rolled to the side just as a Griktar spear crashed into the wall where she had been standing. She slashed at the warrior's ankle and disappeared back into the shadows. The fight lasted only 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the Griktar leader finally roared for his warriors to retreat, 8 of them were wounded and limping. None of the Kethmari were seriously hurt. Marcus stood at the cave entrance and watched the Gricktar carry their wounded away into the jungle. He was breathing hard and covered in dust, but he was smiling. "We did it," Tarek said in amazement. "We actually hurt them." "This was just the beginning," Marcus warned. "They'll be back, but next time they'll be more careful. We need to be ready." Elder Corvash approached Marcus slowly. The old Kethmari looked at him with new respect. "He says he was wrong about you," Zira translated. "He says you fight like our ancient legends spoke of, with fire and thunder." "No," Marcus corrected. "I fight like a human, but you fought like warriors today. Your people have more strength than they knew." Over the next several hours, Marcus taught the Kethmari everything he could about guerrilla warfare. He showed them how to make simple weapons from rocks and metal pieces. He taught them how to set traps and how to attack in small groups. Most importantly, he taught them to think like soldiers instead of victims. "The Gricktar are bigger and stronger," Marcus explained to his growing group of volunteers. "But they're used to hunting frightened prey. They don't know how to fight against an organized enemy." "What do we do next?" Nira asked. Marcus looked at his motion detector. It showed the Gricktar regrouping about half a mile away. They were building a large camp. "We take the fight to them," Marcus said. "Tonight we hit their supply camp. We steal their food and weapons. We show them that they're not safe anywhere." "But that is very dangerous," Pole said. "Everything is dangerous now," Marcus replied. "The question is whether we die hiding in a cave or die fighting for our freedom." Zira looked at Marcus with her large purple eyes. "Why do you care so much about our freedom? We are not your people." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "All intelligent life is my people. That's what it means to be human." As night fell over the alien jungle, Marcus and 12 Kethmari volunteers prepared for their first real attack. They painted their faces with mud and checked their improvised weapons. But unknown to them, the Gricktar leader was also making plans. He had seen something in the cave fight that worried him. The strange creature from the sky was teaching the Kethmari to think like hunters instead of prey. And in the deep jungle, other eyes were watching. Eyes that belonged to the high chieftain of all the Gricktar tribes. An ancient and cunning leader who had been waiting for an excuse to gather all his warriors together. The real war was about to begin. Part 2. Unlikely. Alliance, Marcus ran through the dark jungle carrying the blue alien girl. His legs burned with pain, but he could hear the green aliens crashing through the trees behind them. Their angry voices got closer every minute. The girl, in his arms, was shaking. Her purple eyes were closed, and her breathing was quick and shallow. The burns on her feet looked bad. She needed medical help soon, or she might die. Marcus jumped over a fallen log and kept running. A sharp branch cut his cheek, but he did not stop. The sounds of the hunting party were getting louder. He could hear them breaking branches and shouting to each other in their rough language. After running for 10 more minutes, Marcus's lungs felt like they were on fire. He had to rest. He found a thick group of bushes and crawled inside, pulling the girl with him. They hid in the shadows and tried to breathe quietly. The green aliens ran past them, still shouting and searching. Marcus waited until their voices faded into the distance. Then he looked down at the girl in his arms. She opened her purple eyes and stared at him. Her lips moved, and she spoke in her musical language. Marcus could not understand the words, but her voice sounded grateful. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I don't understand what you're saying." The girl looked confused for a moment. Then she closed her eyes and pressed her hand against Marcus's forehead. Suddenly, Marcus felt a strange tingling in his brain. It was like someone was gently touching his thoughts. Then he heard a voice inside his head, not with his ears, but in his mind. Can you understand me now?" the voice said. It sounded like the girl, but the words were in English. Marcus pulled back in surprise. You're telepathic? The girl nodded weakly. My people. We can share thoughts. But it is hard for me. I am hurt bad. What's your name? Marcus asked. I am Zira. I was of the Kethmari. Her mental voice sounded sad. What are you? I have never seen a creature like you. I'm human. My name is Marcus. I'm from another world. He looked at her burned feet. We need to take care of your wounds. Marcus opened his survival pack and took out his medical kit. He had bandages, pain medicine, and healing gel. He cleaned Zira's burns carefully and wrapped them with soft cloth. This will help, he said as he worked. But you need real medical care. Zira winced as he touched her feet, but she did not cry out. You saved me from the Griktar. Why? I am nothing to you. Because it was the right thing to do, Marcus said simply. No one should be tortured like that. Zira's purple eyes grew wide. Right thing? I do not understand. Where I come from, we believe that all intelligent life has value. It doesn't matter what species you are. Everyone deserves to live without fear. Zira was quiet for a long time. Then she said, The Griktar do not think that way. They see my people as food. They have hunted us for many generations. How many of your people are left? Marcus asked. Not many. Maybe 20. Maybe less. Zira's mental voice was full of pain. We hide in caves and eat roots and insects. The Griktar are too strong. Too many. We cannot fight them. Marcus finished bandaging her feet. Where are these caves? We need to get you back to your people. Why would you help us more? You have done enough. Marcus looked at her seriously. Because I don't leave people behind. That's not what humans do. Zira stared at him like he was the strangest creature she had ever seen. Then she pointed deeper into the jungle. The caves are that way. But Marcus human, the Griktar will follow us. They do not give up easily. As if to prove her point, they heard a deep sound echoing through the forest. It was not a voice. It was drums. Loud, rhythmic drum beats that seemed to shake the very air. What is that? Marcus asked. Zira's face went pale. War drums. The Griktar are calling their hunters together. All of them. She grabbed Marcus's arm with her small hand. They will bring hundreds of warriors. We must run. Now! Marcus helped Zira stand up. She could barely walk on her burned feet, but she gritted her teeth and tried to move. The drums kept beating, getting louder and more urgent. They moved through the jungle as fast as they could. Marcus supported most of Zira's weight. Every few minutes they had to stop and rest. The drums never stopped. Tell me about the Griktar, Marcus said as they walked. How do they hunt? What are their weaknesses? Weaknesses? Zira looked confused again. They have no weaknesses. They are bigger than us, stronger. They have more weapons. Everyone has weaknesses, Marcus said. When I used my flares back there, they seemed afraid of bright light, and loud noises made them jump. Yes, they do not see well in darkness, and sudden loud sounds confuse them. But so what? They still have claws and teeth and spears. Marcus was thinking. In his mind, he was already forming plans. What about your people? Do the Kethmari have any special abilities besides telepathy? We can change our skin color to match our surroundings, and we are faster than the Griktar, but not as strong. Camouflage and speed, Marcus said, nodding. That's useful. What else? We are smarter than them. But intelligence does not stop spears. Intelligence stops everything, if you use it right, Marcus said. That's the most important thing humans have learned. They walked in silence for a while. The drums were getting closer. Marcus could hear other sounds now, too, the howling of Griktar warriors and the breaking of tree branches as a large group moved through the forest. Finally, they reached a cliff face covered with thick vines. Zira pushed the vines aside to reveal a hidden cave entrance. The opening was small, barely big enough for a person to crawl through. "This is it," Zira said. "My people are inside." They crawled through the entrance into a larger cave. The inside was lit by glowing fungi that grew on the walls. The light was soft and blue, like moonlight. 20 pairs of purple eyes stared at Marcus as he entered. The Kethmari were all similar to Zira, small with blue skin and white hair. But these ones looked thin and scared. Some of them were very young, like children. Others looked old and tired. When they saw Marcus, some of the Kethmari gasped and moved backward. They spoke quickly to each other in their musical language. Marcus could feel fear coming from them. "They are afraid," Zira explained. "They have never seen anything like you." An older Kethmari with silver hair stepped forward. He looked at Marcus suspiciously and spoke to Zira in their language. "This is Elder Corvash," Zira said. "He asks why you brought a stranger here. He says you may have led the Griktar to our hiding place." "Tell him I'm here to help," Marcus said. Zira translated. Elder Corvash shook his head and spoke again, his voice sharp and angry. "He says strangers do not help. He says only Kethmari care about Kethmari. He wants you to leave." Marcus looked around the cave. He saw wounded Kethmari, lying on simple beds made of moss. He saw children with big eyes who looked too thin. He saw adults who had given up hope. "Tell him about the drums," Marcus said quietly. Zira spoke to Elder Corvash. His face went pale. All the Kethmari in the cave stopped talking and listened. The war drums could be heard even through the rock walls of the cave, Elder Corvash said, something in a frightened voice. "He says we must hide deeper in the caves," Zira translated. "He says we must be very quiet and hope the Griktar do not find us." "That's not going to work," Marcus said. He opened his survival pack and took out a small electronic device. It beeped softly and showed a glowing screen. "This is a motion detector. There are at least 100 large life forms moving toward this location. The Griktar are not just hunting randomly. They're tracking us." The Kethmari looked at the device with wonder and fear. "Tell them that hiding is not enough anymore," Marcus continued. "The Griktar know where you are. In a few hours, they will find this cave. And when they do, they will kill everyone inside." Elder Corvash spoke angrily to Zira, pointing at Marcus. "He says this is your fault for bringing the stranger here," Zira translated. "He says you have doomed us all." Marcus stood up and looked at all the Kethmari. When he spoke, his voice was calm but strong. "Tell them I have an idea. Tell them that humans don't just run away from bullies. We fight back, and we win," Zira translated. The Kethmari looked at each other uncertainly. Outside the cave, the war drums were getting louder, and now they could hear something else. The sound of many feet marching through the jungle, coming closer and closer. Elder Corvash spoke one more time, his voice full of despair. "He says we cannot fight," Zira said. "He says the Kethmari are not warriors. We are a peaceful people." Marcus smiled grimly. "Then it's time you learned from someone who isn't peaceful." The drumbeats stopped. In the sudden silence, they could hear heavy breathing just outside the cave entrance. The Griktar had found them. Part 1. The Crash and Discovery. The warning lights on Marcus Chen's ship flashed red like angry eyes. His small survey vessel shook violently as it fell toward the green planet below. The engine was dead. The steering was not working, and Marcus was going to crash. Come on," Marcus said through his teeth. He pulled the emergency controls, trying to find a safe place to land. Through the front window, he could see thick jungle everywhere. No cities, no roads, just endless green trees. The ship hit the ground hard. Marcus's head banged against the wall. Everything went black for a moment. When Marcus opened his eyes, Smoke was filling the cockpit. He coughed and unbuckled his safety belt. His left arm hurt, but he could move it. That was good. He checked his body quickly. A few cuts and bruises, but nothing broken. Marcus looked around his damaged ship. The communication system was destroyed. Black wires hung from broken panels. The life support system was making strange beeping sounds. It would not work much longer. Great, Marcus said to himself. Stuck on an unknown planet with no way to call for help. He was a xenoarchaeologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures. This was supposed to be a simple job. Just fly to planet. Kepler 442c, take some pictures of the surface, collect soil samples, and go home. Easy work. But now he was stranded. Marcus put on his survival pack and took his emergency flare gun. The ship's air was getting bad. He needed to go outside and look for materials to fix his communication system. Maybe he could find metal pieces or working electronics. The planet's air was thick and humid. It smelled like wet earth and strange flowers. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, making everything look dreamlike. The jungle was full of sounds. Bird calls, insect buzzing, and leaves rustling in the wind. Marcus walked carefully through the alien forest. The trees were tall and covered with blue moss. Strange fruits hung from branches like glowing lanterns. Some plants moved when he got close to them, like they were watching him. After walking for 30 minutes, Marcus heard something that made his blood freeze, screaming. It was not an animal sound. It was someone crying for help. The voice was high and full of pain. It came from deeper in the jungle. Marcus stopped walking. His heart beat fast. He was alone on this planet. Going toward the screaming could be dangerous. But someone was in trouble. Maybe another crashed traveler who needed help. The screaming came again. It was weaker now, like whoever was making it was getting tired. Marcus made his choice. He followed the sound. He pushed through thick bushes and climbed over fallen trees. The screaming got louder as he got closer. Now he could hear other sounds, too. Rough voices speaking in a language he did not understand. They sounded angry and excited. Marcus reached the edge of a large clearing. He hid behind a big tree and looked out carefully. What he saw made his stomach feel sick. In the middle of the clearing was a fire pit with burning wood. Above the fire, tied to a long wooden stick, was a small alien creature. It looked like a girl, but not human. Her skin was pale blue with silver patterns. She had long white hair and large purple eyes. She was maybe the size of a human teenager. Around the fire were about 20 other aliens. These ones looked very different from the girl. They were bigger, with dark green scaly skin and yellow eyes. They had long claws and sharp teeth. Their bodies were strong and muscular. They wore simple clothes made from animal skins and bone jewelry. The green aliens were dancing around the fire. They waved stone spears and wooden clubs in the air. Some of them were turning the stick slowly, like they were cooking the blue girl over the flames. Others were chanting in their rough language. The blue girl was still alive. She pulled against the ropes that held her, but she was too weak to break free. Her purple eyes were full of fear and pain. Sometimes she cried out, but her voice was getting softer. Marcus watched in horror. These green aliens were going to cook and eat the blue girl while she was still alive. This was not just hunting for food. This was torture. He looked at his flare gun. He had 6 shots. There were 20 green aliens and they all had weapons. If he tried to fight them, he would probably die. The smart thing to do was hide and stay safe. But as Marcus watched, the blue girl's eyes found his through the trees. She could see him hiding there. Her purple eyes looked right at him, and he could see her silent plea for help. She was begging him to save her. Marcus thought about his training. He was a scientist, not a soldier. His job was to study alien cultures, not interfere with them. Maybe this was normal for these green aliens. Maybe this was their way of life. But then the blue girl screamed again as the flames got closer to her feet. The sound cut through Marcus like a knife. He could not just watch someone be murdered. It did not matter if they were human or alien. It did not matter if this was their culture. Some things were just wrong. Marcus checked his flare, gun, and stepped out from behind the tree. The dancing stopped. The chanting stopped. 20 pairs of yellow eyes turned to stare at him. Marcus was tall for a human, but these green aliens were even taller. Their muscles looked like they could tear him apart with their bare hands. Their sharp teeth gleamed in the firelight. For a moment, nobody moved. Marcus and the green aliens stared at each other across the clearing. The only sound was the crackling of the fire. Then one of the green aliens, bigger than the others with more bone jewelry, said something in their language. It sounded like a question. Marcus raised his flare gun and pointed it at the big alien. His hand was shaking, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "Let her go," Marcus said loudly. The green aliens looked confused. They did not understand his words, but they could see his weapon. Some of them raised their spears. The big alien said something else. This time it sounded like a command. The other aliens started to move toward Marcus slowly, spreading out to surround him. Marcus's heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. He was about to die, but he could not run away now. The blue girl was still tied over the fire, and her purple eyes were watching him. Marcus pointed his flare gun at the sky and pulled the trigger. The flare shot up into the air with a loud bang and exploded in a ball of bright red light. The green aliens jumped back and covered their eyes. Some of them fell to the ground. They made scared noises and pointed at the sky. Marcus quickly shot another flare, this time right at the fire pit. The flare hit the burning wood and scattered it everywhere. Sparks and flames flew in all directions. The green aliens screamed and ran away from the fire. While they were confused and scared, Marcus ran toward the blue girl. She was hanging just above where the fire had been. The wooden stick was hot, and smoke was rising from her burned feet. Marcus pulled out his survival knife and cut the ropes. The blue girl fell into his arms. She was light, but her skin was burning hot from the fire. She looked up at him with her big purple eyes and whispered something in a musical language he did not understand. Behind them, the green aliens were getting over their fear. The big one was shouting at the others, pointing at Marcus. They were picking up their weapons again. Marcus looked around quickly. The jungle was thick on all sides of the clearing. If he ran in any direction, the green aliens could follow him. They knew this forest better than he did. They would catch him. But then he remembered something from his survival training. These aliens had been afraid of the bright light from his flares. Maybe they had poor night vision. Maybe loud noises scared them too. Marcus fired another flare directly at the group of green aliens. The bright light made them scream and cover their eyes again. While they were blinded, he picked up the blue girl and ran toward the thickest part of the jungle. Behind him, he could hear the green aliens shouting to each other. Their heavy feet crashed through the bushes as they started to chase him. Marcus ran as fast as he could while carrying the injured girl. Branches scratched his face and tore his clothes. His lungs burned from the effort. The blue girl held on to him tightly, her musical voice whispering what sounded like, "Thank you," over and over. As they disappeared into the dark jungle, Marcus could still hear the angry voices of the green aliens behind them. The hunt had begun.